Before the gods, before the earth, before the sky, there was only chaos. Imagine a gaping void, a silent, formless abyss where nothing existed, no light, no darkness, no time. It was a state of absolute nothingness, drifting in the infinite. But then, from this silent void, something stirred. A scream of creation echoed through the emptiness. Suddenly, existence burst forth. From chaos emerged the first primordial entities. First came Gaia, the earth, the solid, unshakable foundation of all things. She was the mother of life, the soil, the rock, the mountains. Deep beneath her, in the furthest pit of the universe, formed Tartarus, a dark, gloomy dungeon of torment, as far beneath the earth as the heaven is above it. Then came Eros, or love, not the romantic love of poets, but the raw, driving force of procreation and attraction that would compel the universe to grow. Then came Erebus, the darkness of the underworld, and Mix, the embodiment of the night itself. Alone, Gaia longed for an equal, a covering, a partner to surround her. So she birthed Uranus, the starry sky. He was vast, blue and brass-hearted. He stretched himself over Gaia, covering her completely on all sides, promising a union that would birth the very world we know. It seemed like paradise, earth and sky locked in eternal embrace. But this was not a love story. It was the beginning of the first cosmic tragedy. Gaia and Uranus were prolific. Their union birthed offspring of unimaginable power. First, the 12 Titans, 6 males and 6 females. Oceanus, the stream that encircles the world. Hyperion, the lord of light. Themis, the justice. Mnemosyne, the memory. And the youngest, the most ambitious of them all, Cronus. These titans were beautiful, powerful, and majestic. But Gaia didn't stop there. She birthed other children, monstrous, terrifying children. She gave birth to the Cyclops, giants with a singular burning eye in the middle of their foreheads, master smiths capable of forging lightning and thunder. Then came the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handers, behemoths with 50 heads and 100 arms of pure muscle, capable of crushing mountains like pebbles. Uranus looked upon these younger children, and he was disgusted. He hated their deformity. He hated their raw, chaotic power. He refused to let them walk in the light. In a cruel act of tyranny, Uranus pushed them back. He shoved these living, breathing children deep back into the womb of the earth, imprisoning them within Gaia's own body. Gaia screamed in agony. She felt the weight of her imprisoned children groaning inside her, trapped in darkness by their own father. Her love for Uranus turned to a cold, hard hatred. Pain breeds vengeance, and Gaia began to plot. Deep within the earth, she forged a weapon, not a sword, not a spear, but a sickle, a jagged blade made of gray adamant, the hardest substance in existence. She called her Titan children to her side and showed them the weapon. She asked for a volunteer to end their father's tyranny. Fear gripped the Titans. Who would dare strike the sky itself? Who would dare attack the supreme ruler of the cosmos? Only one stepped forward. Cronus, the youngest, the wiliest, the most ambitious of them all. He took the sickle from his mother's hand. His eyes didn't show fear, they showed hunger. He didn't just want to free his brothers, he wanted the throne. The plan was set. That night Uranus descended from the heavens to lie with Gaia, enveloping the earth in his starry embrace, unsuspecting, arrogant, secure in his power. He did not see Cronus hiding in the shadows. At the signal, Cronus burst forth. He grabbed his father with his left hand, a hand that would forever be considered ill-omened, and with his right hand he swung the adamantine sickle. A single, brutal stroke. He castrated his own father, severing his manhood and throwing the severed parts into the turbulent sea behind him. Uranus howled in pain, a sound that shook the foundations of the universe. For the first time, the sky pulled away from the earth, separating forever, creating the space in which we now live. But the violence of the gods always bears fruit. Drops of Uranus's blood fell on the fertile soil of Gaia. From this blood, the giants were born, armored warriors meant for war. From this blood, the Furies sprang up, monstrous spirits of vengeance, with eyes that wept blood, destined to punish those who kill their kin. And what of the severed flesh thrown into the sea? As it drifted, a white foam gathered around it. From this sea foam, amidst the violent waves, rose a figure of perfect beauty, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and desire, born from an act of brutal violence. Uranus, retreating into the heavens, cursed his son. He prophesied that just as Cronus had risen up against his father, he too would one day be destroyed by his own children. Cronus laughed. He was the king now. The sky had fallen. The age of the Titans had begun. Cronus took the throne of the universe. He married his sister, Rhea, and for a time it seemed peace had returned. This era was known as the Golden Age of Man. Humans lived without laws, without courts, without war, living in harmony with the gods. But Cronus was not a benevolent king. He was a tyrant just like his father. Remember the Cyclopes and the 100-handers, the brothers he promised to free. Once he secured power, Cronus betrayed them. He cast them down into Tartarus, locking them away in the darkness, fearing their power would threaten his rule. And then the paranoia set in. Uranus's curse echoed in his mind. You will be destroyed by your own children. Cronus became obsessed with the prophecy. He looked at his wife, Rhea, not with love, but with suspicion. When Rhea gave birth to their first child, Hestia, Cronus did not cradle the baby. He opened his massive jaws and swallowed her whole. He didn't kill her. Gods are immortal. They cannot die. He trapped her, living inside his stomach. Rhea screamed, horrified, but Cronus was cold. Safety, he told himself. Order. Then came Demeter, swallowed. Then Hera, swallowed. Then Hades, swallowed. Then Poseidon, swallowed. 5 gods, 5 children, trapped in the living prison of their father's gut. Cronus grew fat and complacent, believing he had cheated fate. He was the master of time, and he was consuming his own future. But Rhea was devastated. She was a mother robbed of her joy, watching her husband turn into a monster far worse than Uranus ever was. When she became pregnant with her 6th child, she knew she could not let this one suffer the same fate. She fled to the island of Crete. There, in a hidden cave on Mount Ida, she gave birth to a son. She named him Zeus. Rhea left the infant Zeus in the care of the nymphs and the goat Amalthea, whose milk fed the young god. To hide his cries from the ears of Cronus, she placed the Curetes, warrior dancers, outside the cave. Whenever the baby cried, they would clash their spears against their shields, drowning out the sound with the noise of war. Rhea returned to Cronus's palace, feigning exhaustion from childbirth. She carried a bundle wrapped tightly in swaddling clothes. Cronus, blinded by his paranoia and greed, demanded the child. He did not check the bundle. He did not look at the face. He simply snatched it from Rhea's trembling hands and swallowed it whole. But it was not a baby. It was a stone, a large, smooth stone wrapped in cloth. The great Titan king, the Lord of Time, had been fooled by a rock. Satisfied that the threat was gone, Cronus returned to his throne, unaware that on the island of Crete, his doom was growing up. Zeus grew rapidly. He was not just a god, he was a force of nature. He possessed a strength and a charisma that the Titans lacked. He knew his destiny was not to hide in a cave, but to rule the cosmos. But he couldn't do it alone. His first ally was Metis, the Titaness of wisdom. Zeus seduced her and asked for her help. Metis concocted a potion, a mixture of wine and mustard, a powerful emetic designed to induce uncontrollable vomiting. Zeus, disguised as a cupbearer, infiltrated Cronus's palace on Mount Olympus. He served the poisoned wine to his father. Cronus, arrogant and unsuspecting, drank deep. Moments later, the king of Titans fell to his knees. His stomach convulsed. First, he vomited up the stone, the omphalos. Then, he vomited up his children, one by one, in reverse order of their swallowing. Out came Poseidon. Out came Hades. Out came Hera, Demeter, and Hestia. They emerged fully grown, their immortality having preserved them, but their eyes were burning with a lifetime of imprisonment. They looked at Zeus not just as a brother, but as a savior, and they looked at Cronus with pure, unadulterated rage. Cronus roared, calling his Titan brothers to arms. The deception was over. The diplomacy was finished. The Titanomachy, the war of the Titans, had begun. This was not a war of armies as we know them. This was a war of cosmic forces. On one side, Mount Olympus, stood the Titans, massive elemental beings who controlled the pillars of the universe. Atlas, the endurance, Hyperion, the fire, Cronus, the time. On the other side, Mount Olympus, stood the rebellion, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and their sisters. For 10 years the war raged, and it was a stalemate. The clashes between the gods shook the earth to its core. Mountains were shattered like glass. Continents were reshaped. The seas boiled, but neither side could gain the upper hand. The Titans were too strong, too experienced. The Olympians were powerful, but they lacked the numbers. Gaia, the Earth Mother, whispered a secret to Zeus. "If you want to win," she said, "you must release those whom Cronus fears most." Zeus understood. He descended into the depths of Tartarus. There he found the forgotten prisoners, the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handers, the ones Uranus had hated and Cronus had betrayed. Zeus spoke to them not as monsters, but as allies. He offered them freedom in exchange for their strength. Grateful and hungry for revenge, they agreed. The Cyclopes, master smiths, went immediately to work. They forged weapons of mass destruction for the three brothers. For Hades, they forged the Helm of Darkness, a helmet that rendered the wearer completely invisible. For Poseidon, they forged the Trident, a three-pronged spear that could shake the earth and control the oceans. And for Zeus, they forged the Thunderbolt, the ultimate weapon, a javelin of pure, concentrated lightning. The final battle was apocalyptic. Zeus led the charge. He hurled lightning bolts relentlessly, turning the sky into a blinding sheet of white fire. The heat was so intense it melted the earth. The forests caught fire and the ocean steamed. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, creating earthquakes that knocked the Titans off their feet. Hades, invisible and terrifying, moved unseen among the enemy, striking fear into their immortal hearts. But the turning point were the Hundred-Handers. 3 of them, Cronus, Briareus, and Gyges, marched onto the battlefield. With their 300 arms moving in unison, they ripped entire cliffs from the mountainsides. They bombarded the Titans with a hail of massive boulders, burying them under a mountain of rock. The Titans, disoriented by the lightning, shaken by the earthquakes, and crushed by the rocks, finally faltered. Cronus looked up to see Zeus standing over him, the master bolt pulsating with energy in his hand. The prophecy had come full circle. The Son had eclipsed the Father. Zeus did not hesitate. He struck Cronus down. The war was over. The victors did not show mercy. They bound the Titans in chains of adamant and cast them down into Tartarus, the very prison Cronus had used for his brothers. The Hundred-Handers, once prisoners, now became the jailers, standing guard at the bronze gates of the underworld to ensure the Titans would never rise again. Atlas, the Titan general who had led the armies in Cronus's place, was given a special punishment. He was not sent to Tartarus. Instead, Zeus tasked him with holding up the weight of the sky on his shoulders for all eternity, preventing it from ever crashing down onto the earth again. With the old regime destroyed, the 3 brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, gathered to divide the world. They didn't fight, they drew lots. Poseidon drew the sea. He became the lord of the oceans, ruler of the storms and the deep. Hades drew the underworld. He became the king of the dead, ruler of the mineral wealth beneath the soil. Zeus drew the sky. He became the king of the gods, the lord of thunder, and the supreme ruler of Mount Olympus. The earth, Gaia, was common ground to all. A new era had dawned. Order had been carved out of chaos. But as the Olympians settled into their golden thrones, looking down upon the world they now ruled, they knew that peace is never permanent in Greek mythology. For down on the surface, a new experiment was about to begin. A titan named Prometheus was mixing clay with water, attempting to shape a new creature, a creature called man. But that is a story for another time. The war was won. The Titans, those ancient pillars of the cosmos, were bound in chains and cast into the deepest pit of Tartarus. The screams of battle had faded, replaced by a silence that felt heavier than the war itself. For the first time in eons, the universe was not ruled by brute force and chaos, but a new generation, the Olympians. But victory brings its own problems. The universe is a vast prize, and three brothers stood at the summit of power, each with a claim to the throne. Zeus, the savior who freed his siblings. Poseidon, the earth shaker who turned the tide. And Hades, the eldest, the quiet shadow who walked unseen. They did not fight for supremacy. They did not risk another war that would shatter the world they'd just saved. Instead, they respected the ancient laws of chance. They took 3 lots and placed them in a helmet. Zeus drew the sky. The heavens became his domain. He claimed the thunderclouds, the lightning, and the supreme authority over gods and men. He became the king, the final word, the enforcer of justice. Poseidon drew the sea. The vast, untamed oceans became his kingdom. He built a golden palace beneath the waves, ruling over every creature that swims, every storm that rages, and holding the power to shake the very foundations of the earth with his moods. And Hades? Hades drew the short straw. He was given the underworld, the realm of the dead, the dark, sunless kingdom beneath the earth where the souls of the departed go to rest. He was banished from the light of the sun, destined to rule as a wealthy but lonely king among shadows. The earth, Gaia, was left common to all, a neutral ground where the gods could walk, intervene, and play their games. And Mount Olympus, soaring high above the clouds, became their home. It is hard for mortal minds to comprehend the splendor of Mount Olympus. It was not merely a mountain, it was a fortress of light. Its gates were clouds kept by the seasons. Inside, the gods feasted on ambrosia and drank nectar, substances that granted them eternal youth and flushed their veins not with blood, but with ichor, the golden fluid of immortality. Here sat the 12 great Olympians, a divine family, dysfunctional, incestuous, violent, yet undeniably magnificent. Beside Zeus sat Hera, his sister and his wife, the queen of heaven. She was the goddess of marriage and childbirth, possessing a beauty that rivaled Aphrodite. But her beauty concealed a jealous heart. Zeus was a king who could not remain faithful, and Hera spent her immortality hunting down his lovers and punishing his illegitimate children with terrifying creativity. Then there was Poseidon, restless and moody, often absent from the mountain, preferring the solitude of his deep waters. And Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, the gentle mother who controlled the seasons and the growth of the crops upon which all life depended. But the younger generation, the children of Zeus, brought new energies to the council. There was Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic war. She had no mother. She sprang fully grown and fully armored from Zeus's own head after a splitting headache. She was his favorite child, the only one trusted to wield his thunderbolt and his shield, the Aegis. There were the twins, Apollo and Artemis. Apollo, the god of the sun, music, prophecy, and healing, the ideal of male beauty, and Artemis, the huntress, the moon, the virgin goddess who roamed the wild forests, protector of young women and wild beasts. There was Ares, the god of war, but unlike Athena, who represented strategy, Ares was the bloodlust. He was the chaos of the battlefield, the scream of the dying, the carnage. He was hated by almost everyone on Olympus, even his own father, Zeus, who called him a two-faced liar. There was Hephaestus, the god of fire and the forge, the only ugly god. When he was born, Hera was so disgusted by his deformity that she threw him off Mount Olympus. He fell for 9 days and nights, landing broken but alive. He became the master smith, forging the golden thrones, the palaces, and the automata that served the gods. Then there was Hermes, the messenger, the trickster. With his winged sandals, he was the fastest of the gods, the only one allowed to travel freely between Olympus, Earth, and the underworld. He was the god of thieves, travelers, and commerce. And then there was Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Born from the sea foam of Uranus's severed flesh, she was older than Zeus himself in lineage, yet eternally young. Her power was irresistible. Even Zeus could be brought to his knees by her influence. To prevent war over her hand in marriage, Zeus married her to Hephaestus, the beauty wedded to the beast. Last was Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, or in later myths, Dionysus, the god of wine and madness, the only Olympian with a mortal mother. This was the council, 12 beings of absolute power, ruling over every aspect of existence. It seemed that order had finally been established, but they had forgotten one thing: Gaia, the Earth Mother. Gaia was furious. She had helped Zeus overthrow Cronus to stop his tyranny, but now Zeus had imprisoned her children, the Titans, in Tartarus. To a mother, a child is a child, whether he is a god or a monster. She looked at the arrogance of the Olympians, feasting in their sky palace, while her sons rotted in the dark, and she demanded justice. But Gaia did not wield weapons. She birthed them. She delved into the darkest, most vile pits of Tartarus and mingled with the darkness itself. From this union of earth and hell, she produced her final child, the ultimate weapon, Typhon. Typhon was not a god. He was a cataclysm given form. He was so massive that his head brushed the stars. When he spread his arms, they touched the east and the west. From the waist down, he was a tangled mass of vipers. Wings sprouted from his body that blotted out the sun. Instead of fingers, he had 100 dragon heads, each vomiting fire and screaming in the voices of different beasts: bulls, lions, dogs, and serpents. He was the father of all monsters, and his only purpose was to destroy Olympus. Typhon marched on Olympus. The earth shook with every step. The seas boiled from the heat of his body. He ripped entire mountains from their roots and hurled them at the sky. The Olympians, who had stood brave against the Titans, looked down at this abomination, and they knew fear. Genuine, primal fear. Panic swept through the golden halls. "We cannot fight this," they whispered. "He is death itself." One by one, the gods fled. They transformed themselves into animals to hide. Apollo became a crow. Dionysus became a goat. Hera became a white cow. They ran all the way to Egypt, cowering in the desert, hiding from the monster that climbed towards their empty thrones. Only one god remained. Zeus stood alone on the peak of Olympus. Perhaps it was pride, perhaps it was duty, or perhaps he knew that if the king ran, the universe would fall back into chaos. He gripped the master bolt, the weapon that had ended the Titan war, and he waited. Typhon crested the mountain, a nightmare of scales and fire. He roared, a sound that shattered the windows of the palaces. Zeus did not speak. He threw the lightning. The battle that followed made the Titanomachy look like a skirmish. Zeus unleashed the full fury of the sky. Thunderbolt after thunderbolt crashed into the monster, burning his 100 heads. Typhon retaliated, spewing rivers of lava and hurling boulders that would become islands. They wrestled across the continents. The impact of their bodies carved out valleys. At one point, Typhon managed to disarm Zeus. He used the sickle, the very same adamantine sickle Cronus used to castrate Uranus, and he cut the sinews from Zeus's hands and feet. Zeus fell, helpless, paralyzed. Typhon carried the broken king to a cave in Cilicia, intending to let him rot before devouring him. But the loyalty of the Olympians was not completely dead. Hermes, the trickster, and Pan, the god of the wild, sneaked into the cave while Typhon was distracted. With surgical precision, they stole back the sinews and reattached them to Zeus's body. Zeus rose again, and this time there was no mercy. He chased Typhon across the sea to the island of Sicily. As the monster tried to retreat, Zeus lifted the massive Mount Etna. With a roar that shook the heavens, he slammed the entire mountain down on top of Typhon. The monster was crushed, trapped beneath millions of tons of rock. He could not escape, but he could not die. To this day, he struggles to break free. His anger manifests as the eruptions of Mount Etna, spewing fire and ash, reminding the world that the monster is still there, waiting. Zeus returned to Olympus, battered but victorious. The other gods returned from Egypt, sheepish, resuming their true forms. The message was clear. The threats to their rule, the Titans, the giants, and Typhon were gone. The hierarchy was cemented. Zeus was not just a king by lot, he was king by might. He had faced the end of the world alone and won. The age of monsters was over. The age of gods was secure. But as the gods looked down from their unassailable fortress, they saw a world that was empty. It was beautiful, yes. There were forests, oceans, and animals, but there was no one to worship them, no one to build temples, no one to offer sacrifices. What is a king without subjects? What is a god without a believer? Zeus turned his gaze to a Titan who had sided with him during the war, a Titan named Prometheus, known for his foresight and his craftsmanship. Zeus gave him a task that would change the fate of the cosmos forever. "Go," Zeus commanded. "Go down to the earth, mix the clay with water, and create a being in our image." The stage was set for the entrance of the most tragic, resilient, and dangerous creature of all, man. The war was won. The monsters were buried. Zeus sat upon his golden throne, the undisputed king of the cosmos. The gods had their nectar, their palaces, and their immortality. But looking down from the snowy peaks of Olympus, the world below was silent. It was a beautiful garden, lush and green, but it was empty. The beasts roamed the forests, the fish swam in the seas, and the birds sang in the air, but there was no mind to appreciate it. There was no creature capable of looking up at the stars and wondering why. Zeus knew the world needed rulers, not gods, but something less than gods, yet more than beasts. So he turned to the Titan brothers who had sided with him in the war, Prometheus, whose name means foresight, and Epimetheus, whose name means hindsight. He gave them a task: populate the earth, fill it with life, give each creature a gift so that they may survive. Epimetheus, eager but foolish, began immediately. He was generous, perhaps too generous. To the lion he gave strength and claws. To the eagle he gave wings and sight. To the turtle a hard shell. To the horse speed. He distributed fur to keep them warm, instincts to keep them safe, and weapons to hunt. By the time he finished, the animal kingdom was perfect. Every beast had a purpose. Every beast had a defense. But then Prometheus stepped forward to create his masterpiece. He went to the banks of a river in Boeotia. He knelt in the mud, taking a handful of clay and mixing it with water. With the care of a master sculptor, he shaped a figure. He made it stand upright on two legs, unlike the beasts that gazed at the ground, so that this new creature could gaze at the heavens. He shaped man. But when Prometheus turned to his brother to ask for a gift for his creation, Epimetheus looked at his empty hands in horror. "I have nothing left," Epimetheus admitted. "I have given all the fur, all the claws, all the wings, and all the strength to the animals. There is nothing left for man." Man stood naked, shivering, weak and defenseless, a hairless ape with no natural armor, no way to hunt, and no way to keep warm in the coming winter. They were destined to die. Prometheus looked at his creation, frail, frightened, yet possessing a spark of intelligence in their eyes. He felt something Titans were not supposed to feel: pity and love. He knew he had to save them, even if it meant defying the king of gods. Prometheus asked Athena, the goddess of wisdom, for help. She breathed life into the clay figures, giving them a soul, but they were still starving and cold. To survive, they needed the favor of the gods. A meeting was arranged at Mycone, a great feast where gods and men would define their relationship. The question was simple: when men sacrifice an animal to the gods, Which part do they keep, and which part do they give to Olympus? Prometheus, the protector of humanity, decided to play a trick on Zeus to ensure men kept the best meat for themselves. He took a great ox and slaughtered it. He divided the carcass into 2 piles. In the first pile, he placed the delicious, juicy meat and the nutritious organs, but he hid them inside the ox's unappetizing stomach lining, making it look disgusting and bloody. In the second pile, he placed the bare, dry bones, but he covered them with a thick, glistening layer of pure white fat, making it look like a rich and savory meal. He invited Zeus to choose. "Choose, O king, the portion that the gods shall receive forevermore." Zeus, the all-knowing, likely saw through the trick, but perhaps his arrogance, or perhaps fate, led his hand. He pointed to the pile covered in glistening fat. "I choose this one," Zeus declared. But when he tore away the fat, he found only dry bones underneath. On the other side, men unwrapped the stomach and found the rich meat. From that day on, humanity would feast on the flesh of the sacrifice, while the gods would receive the smoke of burning bones and fat. Zeus was furious. He had been humiliated by a titan in front of mortals. His rage was cold and calculating. "You think you are clever, Prometheus," Zeus whispered, his voice like distant thunder. "You want to help your precious humans? Fine, let them eat their meat raw, let them shiver in the dark." As punishment, Zeus withheld the one thing humanity needed most, the one thing that separated civilization from savagery: fire. Without fire, the nights were terrors. Men huddled in caves, freezing, unable to cook their food, unable to forge tools, hunted by the very beasts Epimetheus had empowered. They were dying out. Prometheus watched their suffering from the shadows. He knew the laws of Olympus. The sacred fire belonged to the gods alone. To steal it was a crime punishable by eternal damnation. He did not hesitate. Under the cover of night, Prometheus climbed the treacherous path to Mount Olympus. He moved like a shadow past the sleeping guards. He crept into the workshop of Hephaestus, where the divine fire burned eternally in the forge. He took a hollow fennel stalk, a dry, reed-like plant. He touched the tip of the stalk to the divine flame. A small spark caught inside the pith, burning slowly, hidden from view. With the ember glowing inside the stalk, Prometheus descended the mountain. He ran back to the world of men. Imagine that first night. A man, shivering in the cold, suddenly sees a figure approach. Prometheus kneels and touches the stalk to a pile of dry leaves. A crackle, a spark, and then light, warmth. "This is my gift," Prometheus told them. "Use it to cook. Use it to keep the beasts away. Use it to forge metal. But never forget where it came from." Fire spread across the earth. Civilization was born. Forges were lit, cities were built, and the darkness was pushed back. Humanity was no longer just a beast. They were masters of their environment. High on Olympus, Zeus looked down and saw the twinkling lights of 1,000 campfires dotting the earth like mirrored stars. He realized he had been disobeyed. His revenge would be twofold, first for the thief, then for the receiver. Zeus sent his servants, Kratos and Gaia,
to arrest Prometheus. They dragged the Titan to the ends of the earth, to the desolate peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. There, Hephaestus was forced to bind his old friend. With a heavy heart, the smith god hammered chains of adamant into the rock, shackling Prometheus's wrists and ankles to the cliff face. He drove a diamond wedge through Prometheus's chest, pinning him to the mountain. "I am sorry," Hephaestus whispered, "but the command of Zeus is absolute." Prometheus did not scream, he did not beg, he stared at the sky with defiant eyes. But the chains were only the beginning. Every day, as the sun rose, a massive eagle, the hound of Zeus, would descend from the sky. Its wingspan blotted out the sun. It would land on Prometheus's chest, its talons digging into his flesh. With its razor-sharp beak, it would tear open his abdomen and eat his liver. The pain was beyond imagination, but Prometheus was immortal. He could not die. Every night, as the cold winds froze his wounds, his liver would regenerate. He would heal, only to face the eagle again the next morning. An eternity of torture. Zeus offered him a way out. "Tell me the prophecy," Zeus demanded. "Tell me who will overthrow me, and I will set you free." For Prometheus, with his foresight, knew the secret of Zeus's downfall. He knew which woman would bear a son stronger than his father. But Prometheus refused to speak. He chose agony over submission. He chose to suffer so that humanity could live. With Prometheus bound, Zeus turned his attention to humanity. He didn't want to destroy them. That would be too easy. He wanted them to suffer. He wanted them to wish they had never received the gift of fire. He conceived a plan so twisted, so brilliant, that it remains the definition of a poisoned gift to this day. He ordered Hephaestus to mix earth and water again, but this time not to make a man, to make a woman. She was the first woman, and she was designed to be irresistible. Hephaestus gave her the form of a lovely maiden. Athena taught her weaving and clothed her in silvery robes. Aphrodite poured grace upon her head, and cruel longing and cares that weary the limbs. Hermes gave her a shameful mind and a deceitful nature. He gave her the voice of a liar. They named her Pandora, which means all gifts, because all the gods had given her a gift. She was breathtaking, she was perfect, and she was a trap. Zeus presented Pandora to Epimetheus, the foolish brother of Prometheus. Prometheus had warned him, "Never accept a gift from Olympian Zeus. Send it back, or it will bring ruin." But Epimetheus looked at Pandora. He saw her beauty, her innocence, her smile. He forgot the warning. He forgot his brother screaming on the mountain. He took her hand and welcomed her into his home. Pandora brought with her a jar, a large ceramic pithos. It was a wedding gift from Zeus with a simple instruction: do not open it. Now remember the gift Hermes gave her, a deceitful nature and curiosity, insatiable curiosity. For days the jar sat in the corner of the house. It whispered to her. What was inside? Treasure? Infinite wisdom? More gifts from the gods? Why would they give her a jar if she couldn't see what was inside? The urge became an itch she couldn't scratch. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She stared at the lid.
One fateful afternoon, while Epimetheus was away, Pandora couldn't take it anymore. "Just a peek," she whispered, "just to see." She knelt beside the jar. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the heavy lid. She lifted it just an inch. That was enough. It was not treasure that flew out. It was a black swarm. Like a cloud of living smoke, the contents of the jar burst forth with a sound like a million screaming banshees. Out flew sickness, out flew death, out flew jealousy, greed, hatred, war, and famine. Out flew old age and toil. Before this moment, humanity had lived without these things. They lived long, painless lives. Now the air was filled with the invisible spirits of misery. They swirled around the room, stinging Pandora, then rushing out the windows to infect the entire world. Pandora screamed. She slammed the lid back down, using all her weight to seal the jar. She sat on the floor, weeping, realizing what she had done. The room was quiet again. The black swarm was gone, unleashed upon the innocent world of men. But then she heard a tiny sound coming from inside the jar, a small, fluttery sound, a faint scratching against the clay walls. It was not a scream, it was not a growl, it was a soft, gentle plea. Pandora hesitated. If she opened it again, would more evil come out? But the voice was so small, so different from the others. Trembling, she lifted the lid one last time. Out flew a single, small spirit. It glowed with a faint, fragile light, like a firefly in a storm. It fluttered out and landed on Pandora's shoulder, healing the sting the evils had left. It was Elpis, hope. Zeus, in his cruelty, had packed all the evils of the world into that jar, but in his mercy, or perhaps his ultimate irony, he had included hope at the very bottom. Because without hope, humanity, faced with all the sickness and death in the world, would have simply given up. They would have lain down and died of despair. But hope gives men the delusion or the strength to keep going, even when everything is lost. The evils spread like a virus. Humanity, now armed with fire but infected with greed and war, became wicked. The Golden Age ended. The Silver Age passed. The Bronze Age began. An age of constant war and violence. Zeus, watching from above, saw that his punishment had worked too well. Men were no longer just miserable, they were irredeemable. He disguised himself as a traveler and walked the earth, testing the hospitality of kings. He found only wickedness. At the table of King Lycaon, he was served human flesh. Disgusted, Zeus returned to Olympus with a final decision. The experiment was a failure. It was time to wipe the slate clean. He did not use fire. He used water. He called upon his brother Poseidon. "Release the oceans," Zeus commanded. "Break the dams of the world." The rains began, not a gentle shower, but a deluge that would drown the mountains. The great flood was coming. But far away, an old man named Deucalion, the son of Prometheus, heard a warning whisper in the wind. His father, even from his chains on the Caucasus, was still watching. Build a chest, build an ark. The end of the world was here, but so was the beginning of the next story. The world had survived the flood. Humanity had repopulated the earth, but the wild places were still dark. The ancient monsters, children of Gaia and the dark pits of Tartarus, still roamed the forests and the seas. Lions with impenetrable skin, serpents with 9 heads, bulls that breathed fire. Ordinary men could not fight these nightmares. Humanity needed protectors. They needed champions who could bridge the gap between the mortal and the divine. And so, Zeus, the king of gods, began a new strategy. He descended from Olympus, not to destroy, but to create. He fathered children with mortal women, dozens of them. These children were born with the blood of gods running through their veins, yet they possessed the mortality of humans. They could bleed, they could die, and because they could die, they could possess something the gods never could: courage. The first great hero was Perseus. His story begins not with a weapon, but with a prophecy. His grandfather, King Acrisius, was told that his grandson would kill him. Terrified, the king locked his daughter, Danae, in a bronze tower with no doors, only a single window to the sky. But stone walls cannot stop a god. Zeus descended into the tower in the form of a shower of golden rain. From this union, Perseus was born. Cast out to sea in a wooden chest, the boy grew up in exile, destined for greatness. But greatness demands a test. To save his mother from a cruel king, Perseus was tricked into a suicide mission to bring back the head of Medusa. Medusa was a Gorgon. Once a beautiful priestess, she had been cursed by Athena. Her hair was a nest of writhing, hissing vipers. Her skin was greenish scale, and her eyes held a power so terrible that any living creature who met her gaze was instantly turned to solid stone. Perseus was young, but he was not alone. The gods favored him. Hermes gave him winged sandals to fly. Hades gave him a helmet of invisibility, and Athena gave him a polished bronze shield, bright as a mirror. He flew to the edge of the world, to the lair of the Gorgons. He found them sleeping among the statues of their victims, warriors frozen in screams of terror. Perseus knew he could not look at her. If he did, his journey would end in stone. He turned his back to the monster and looked only at the reflection in his bronze shield. Like a ghost, he floated backward, watching the distorted image of Medusa sleeping on the stone floor. He drew his sword. With a silent prayer to Athena, he struck. One clean slice. The head of Medusa rolled across the floor. Her body thrashed, and from her severed neck, strangely, winged Pegasus sprang forth. Perseus grabbed the head, still writhing, eyes still deadly, and shoved it into a magic bag. He fled the sisters of Medusa, flying across the ocean. On his way back, he saw a princess chained to a rock, Andromeda, sacrificed to a sea monster. Perseus didn't just save her, he unleashed the weapon he carried. He pulled Medusa's head from the bag and showed it to the beast. The massive sea monster turned to stone, crashing into the ocean as a new island. Perseus returned home. He saved his mother, and yes, the prophecy came true. Years later, while competing in athletic games, Perseus threw a discus. The wind caught it, and it struck an old man in the crowd, killing him instantly. That man was his grandfather, King Acrisius. Fate, in Greek mythology, is inescapable. While Perseus was the favorite of the gods, the next hero, Theseus was the champion of the people. He was the son of Poseidon, but he relied on his wits as much as his strength. His great test lay on the island of Crete. King Minos of Crete demanded a terrible tribute from Athens. Every 9 years, 7 young men and 7 young women had to be sent to Crete to be fed to the Minotaur. The Minotaur, half man, half bull, a beast of pure rage, born from a queen's unnatural lust for a white bull. It lived in the labyrinth, an underground maze so complex that no one who entered had ever found the way out. Theseus volunteered to be one of the victims. He vowed to kill the beast and end the slaughter. When he arrived in Crete, Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, fell in love with him. She knew that even if Theseus killed the monster, he would never escape the maze. So she gave him a secret weapon, not a sword, but a ball of thread. "Tie this to the entrance," she whispered. "Unravel it as you go. It will lead you home." Theseus entered the darkness. The air smelled of rot and old blood. He walked for hours, turning left, turning right, the thread slipping through his fingers. Deep in the center of the labyrinth, he heard the heavy breathing. The Minotaur charged. It was a brutal, claustrophobic fight in the dark. The bullman was stronger, but Theseus was faster. He dodged the horns, leapt onto the beast, and with a primal scream, he snapped the monster's neck. The Minotaur fell. The nightmare of Athens was dead. Theseus followed the thread back to the light, leading the other survivors to freedom. But heroes are flawed. In his haste to return to Athens, he abandoned Ariadne on an island, and he forgot to change the black sails of his ship to white, the signal of his victory. His father, King Aegeus, watching from the cliffs of Athens, saw the black sails. Believing his son was dead, the king threw himself into the sea in despair. That is why, to this day, the sea is called the Aegean Sea. But of all the heroes who walked the earth, one stands above them all. His name is known in every language. The Romans called him Hercules. The Greeks called him Heracles. His name literally means the glory of Hera. But this was a cruel irony, for Hera, the queen of gods, hated him more than anything in existence. Hercules was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, Alcmene. He was the living proof of Zeus's infidelity. Hera vowed to make his life a living hell. When Hercules was just a baby in his crib, Hera sent 2 venomous snakes to kill him. His mortal brother screamed, but baby Hercules just laughed. He grabbed the snakes with his chubby hands and strangled them, playing with their limp bodies like toys. He grew up to be the strongest man who ever lived. He was unstoppable, but he had a fatal flaw, his temper. Hera knew she couldn't kill him with monsters, so she attacked his mind. One night, she sent a fit of madness upon him. Hercules, in a hallucination, believed his own wife and children were enemies. In a blind rage, he drew his sword and slaughtered them all. When the madness lifted, Hercules stood in a pool of blood, looking down at the broken bodies of his family. The strongest man in the world fell to his knees and wept. He was broken, a murderer. He went to the oracle of Delphi, begging for a way to cleanse his soul.
The oracle told him he must serve his cousin, King Eurystheus, a weak and cowardly man, for 12 years. He must complete 10 labors, which later became 12, that the king would choose. These were the 12 labors of Hercules, impossible tasks designed to kill him.
First, the Nemean lion, a beast with fur so tough that no sword or arrow could pierce it. Hercules trapped the lion in a cave. He realized weapons were useless, so he threw them aside. He wrestled the lion with his bare hands, wrapping his immense arms around the beast's throat and choking the life out of it. He skinned the lion using its own razor-sharp claws and wore its pelt as a cloak, an armor that made him invulnerable. Second, the Lernaean hydra, a serpent living in the swamps with 9 poisonous heads. If you cut off one head, 2 more would grow back in its place. Hercules fought in the toxic fumes, swinging his club, but for every head he smashed, the monster grew stronger. He called his nephew for help. As Hercules chopped off a head, his nephew used a torch to cauterize the neck stump, burning it shut so nothing could grow back. Finally, Hercules sliced off the immortal central head and buried it under a massive rock. Third and fourth, he chased the Ceryneian hind, a deer with golden antlers, just to catch it without harming it. He trapped the Erymanthian boar in deep snow. Fifth, the Augean stables. He was ordered to clean the stables of King Augeas, which housed thousands of cattle and hadn't been cleaned in 30 years. It was a humiliating task, meant to drown him in filth. But Hercules didn't use a shovel. He used his brain. He dug a canal and diverted 2 rushing rivers to flow directly through the stables, washing away decades of dung in a single day. Sixth, seventh, eighth, he drove away the man-eating Stymphaean birds. He captured the Cretan bull, the father of the Minotaur. He tamed the mares of Diomedes, horses that ate human flesh, by feeding their cruel master to them. Ninth, the belt of Hippolyta. He faced the Amazon warriors to retrieve the queen's girdle. 10th, the cattle of Geryon. He traveled to the end of the world to steal cattle from a 3-bodied giant. On his way, he split a mountain in half, creating the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules. 11th, the apples of Hesperides. He tricked Atlas, the Titan holding up the sky, into retrieving the golden apples for him. For a brief moment, Hercules held the weight of the entire cosmos on his shoulders, feeling the burden of the gods. 12th, the descent into hell. The final labor was the most dangerous. He had to go to the underworld and bring back Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog of Hades. Hercules descended into the realm of the dead. He stood before Hades himself. "You may take the dog," Hades said coldly, "if you can subdue him without weapons." Hercules dropped his club. He wrestled the hellhound, ignoring the snake tail biting him, ignoring the 3 snapping jaws. He squeezed until the beast went limp. He dragged the dog to the surface, terrified the king, and then returned the beast to Hades. The labors were done. The blood on his hands was washed away by sweat and toil. Hercules was redeemed.
Hercules lived many more years, had many more adventures, but his end was tragic. He was not killed by a monster, but by jealousy and a trick. His wife,
Deianira was tricked by a dying centaur into believing that the centaur's blood was a love potion. When she thought Hercules was losing interest in her, she soaked his tunic in the blood. But it was not a love potion. It was the poison of the Hydra, which had killed the centaur years before. When Hercules put on the tunic, the poison activated. It burned his flesh like acid. He tried to rip the clothes off, but the skin came with them. The pain was unbearable. The hero who conquered lions and hydras could not conquer this agony within his veins. He built his own funeral pyre on a mountaintop. He laid down upon it and ordered it to be lit. As the flames consumed his mortal body, a miracle happened. The mortality burned away, but the divine part, the part of him that was Zeus, remained. Zeus sent a lightning bolt to snatch his son from the fire. Hercules did not go to the underworld. He ascended to Mount Olympus. There, he was reconciled with Hera. He was given Hebe, the goddess of youth, as his wife. The man who suffered more than anyone else became a god. The age of heroes was a time of bright lights and deep shadows. Monsters were slain, cities were built, the boundaries of the world were pushed back by men like Perseus, Theseus, and Hercules. But as the great heroes ascended or died, the world began to change again. The gods were becoming restless. The earth was becoming too heavy with the weight of humanity. Zeus looked down at the kingdoms of men. He saw their pride. He saw their walled cities, and he decided it was time for one final great purging. A war that would end the age of heroes. It wouldn't start with a monster. It would start with a wedding and a golden apple and the most beautiful woman in the world. The stage was set for Troy.